Hey there, welcome to the Empowerment Equation podcast. I'm Rowan Embry.
And I'm Lyra Vanguard.
On this podcast, we'll have insightful conversations that can empower all of us as we tap into our inner wisdom and connect with our higher selves.
We've got some awesome guests lined up who will share their stories about moments that really help to awaken and empower them. And we're sure their stories will empower you as well. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hi, welcome to the Empowerment Equation. We're here today with Interfaith Priestess Summer Dawn. She is the owner of Open Hearts Yoga Sanctuary, and she's also a certified Reiki master and yoga instructor. Welcome, Summer.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I wanted to talk with you today because, well, for several reasons. One, I've been learning so much from you over the last couple of years by going to classes at the sanctuary, and the Kundalini classes you've taught have been life-changing for me for the better. And also, some of our previous guests have done shout outs for Open Hearts and for you in particular. And I thought it would be great if our listeners could hear directly from you, how you came about being on this journey and creating such a sanctuary that everybody goes to and finds a home and a complete acceptance in this space. What started you on this path? What led you here? I think it helps people to hear those kinds of details and how we got to be having our awakening.
Yeah. Wow. So that is such a big question for me because I feel like my own spirit has been trying to wake me up my whole life, And I have these points in time where I can see, I consciously created something for the purpose of healing. But what's really been coming up for me lately is this connecting of the dots of noticing and remembering, wow, this happened in my life. And my own spirit was trying to, shake me awake and get me onto a holistic healing path or an alternative spiritual healing path. And it's interesting to me how long I really ignored that call. I think a lot of us, if we get to the point where we're having these conversations and we're, having recorded conversations on podcasts and we're out in the public eye and we're doing public work, we've been called to a very large opportunity to do our healing work in the world. And I think that a lot of times, something within us knows that, and there can be like a little bit of ego resistance because it is a big calling to break the status quo, to do something different than what you've ever done, to maybe do something different than what your family has ever taught you. And I can see, throughout time, how long I was really trying to get myself onto this path and how much I resisted. And then just some really life-changing things happened where I couldn't ignore the call to do my own self-healing. And when I finally answered that call and chose to do my own healing work, my expansion began so quickly and so rapidly that I understood immediately this work works. This energy work works. Yoga works. These things do what they say that they will do if you will just do them. For a long time, I did not believe that these things would work for me just because of the background that I came from, very limited belief system, very smart, wise, loving, caring people, but with a limited belief system that didn't allow us to get out of the box of what we have been doing over and over and over again. Some of the stories and the things in specific that I'm talking about, like I can dip through time and see, like I was trying to wake myself up, but the most remarkable first big hurdle on my journey was in 1999 when my brother passed away. And that was it set for any family. It was very shocking. It's very, traumatic when you lose a young person and when you lose somebody unexpectedly. And my family and I really held on to grief and anger and resentment for a really long time. And I began to get very sick in my body, but I didn't want to let go of the grief. It was like sometimes when you lose people, your mind is closed to past lives, your mind is closed to spirit guides, and you don't really understand the forever infinite aspect of spirit. It seems like death is forever, right? And, so I really just shut down for a very long time, just in anger and in grief, and became very sick in my body from holding all of those emotions in. And then when I realized that I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and I had to do something different, and there was nothing medical that could be done for me, I had to start looking at some different things and some different options to get well, because Western medicine couldn't do it for me because it was an emotional issue. And so I started looking into some other ways to heal. And I finally started reading some books that were self-help books and books I wouldn't normally read and subjects I wouldn't normally read about. And I just sort of started dipping my toe into mental health and emotional well-being and trying some new things. And I ended up meeting a man that, which my daughter's in the background. It's interesting that I'm just going to tell this story with her. I had been really resistant to trying yoga and meditation and energy healing, but I was kind of thinking about it. And so I started dating this man who was interested in all of those things, but I was still resistant to it. And he helped me slowly, like, dip my toes in the water of, is this safe? Is it safe to break this mold? Is it safe to think and consciousness? It can be this, and also it can be this. What I believe and love and know now can be true, and also all of these other things can be true as well. So my mind began to expand. And we began to, this man and I began to date. And the very first date that we ever went on, he took me to an AA meeting. That was a really interesting experience and an interesting choice, but it was his life at that time. And I remember just sitting there in awe of what was going on in this meeting. I could not believe the incredible honesty and vulnerability, the level at which people were sharing their authentic selves. I was just blown away. I'd really never seen that before. I had never seen that other than in close, personal, private friendship, discussions and talks with your best friends. I had never heard people talk like that before. And I was just so rocked by that I just remained in curiosity over the way that they were communicating and the way that they were coming forward with who they really were and what they were working on and what they were struggling with and what was going well for them and what wasn't and where they needed support. And it just felt really powerful to me. And then I ended up marrying this man. And after we had our first child, he was in this habit of attending a daily meeting and also a daily meditation. And I didn't have these practices. I had a baby and a house, and I had him. And he would go to the meetings and he would go to meditation. And he had these excellent habits that I didn't have yet. And they were very supportive of his mental well-being and his emotional well-being and who he was able to show up in the world as. And he had promised me that we were going to clean the house and clean out the closets or something like that. And we had this plan. And he comes to the house and he says to me, I know we were going to do this, but I really need to go to a meeting today. And I said, I understand you do that every day. and you promised me that today we were doing this. And we went back and forth about it, and I understood his need, but because I don't experience substance addiction, I cognitively understood, but deep down in my being, I really didn't get it. My compassionate heart understood, but I couldn't really wrap my whole brain around it because I didn't yet understand the full value of gathering in community. In the moment, this was the conversation that really turned my life into what it is right now. And I said, we were going back and forth, and I was asking him, you promised me, that we were going to do these things, and we keep going back and forth, and we weren't fighting. We were just, he was like, I want to do this. And I was like, I want to do this. And it was clear that our priorities were different in the moment. And I finally got angry, and we didn't have a, volatile relationship. And I never yelled at him until this one moment. And I got so mad, and I said, what about the rest of us? What about the rest of us that don't have anybody to talk to? Where do I go when I need somebody to talk to? Where do I go to find somebody who understands how I feel? Where do I go to find somebody who they understand my struggles? I've got a sponsor, maybe I'm sponsoring other people. There's people ahead of me on the journey. There's people coming up behind me on the journey. There's people who understand me from my past and from the future perspective. Where is that for people like me? And I didn't mean that towards him in the moment. What happened was enough frustration came up within me that I finally expressed my truth about how really lonely I really was, just as a human being with no tribe, no community, just being a stay-at-home mom, and having no structure around a village or around a tribe. And it wasn't a big fight that we had or anything like that. He listened to me and he heard what I said, and I relaxed. And after I caught all my feelings out, and he went to his meeting, and then he came home, and we cleaned the house, and I began to think about what I had said that had come from the deepest depths of me, that I didn't even know that was the way that I really felt, that I felt alone, largely not unsupported by my husband, but just unsupported in life. Why doesn't everybody have a circle? Why doesn't everybody have a meeting? Why doesn't everybody have a sponsor that they can call when something is going? Why doesn't everybody have one or two people that call them up for advice because you've been doing whatever they're interested in for a while? And that really got my wheels turning. And I started getting really interested in holistic healing work. So there's two stories here, and the other one is a little bit more fun. The first one, that was like some deep down stuff that was coming out. I didn't know that I was, feeling that way. And that part of my spirit that was about community and creating community, that part of me was awakening in that moment. And I have to credit AA. I've never even been a person in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I have to give huge credit to that organization for the way that they really show up for people, and they stay organized and they stay supportive, because even those of us who are not in that organization, our families are supported by it, and being exposed to that showed me what was possible when people come together and they're committed to their own healing path. And then they're also, supportive of others. So at the same time that was awakening within me, I love Halloween, love Halloween. And every year at my house, we have these huge Halloween parties, and it's really kind of ridiculous here at my house that it looks like Griswold family Christmas, but it starts way back at Halloween and it goes all the way through the new year. So every year I'm looking forward to this. And that year, my oldest child, she was in middle school, and she wanted to invite all of her friends and have an indoor little teenager party. And so I was going even more out, all out than normal. And we had this long dining table that sat like 12 people. And so I go and I buy skeletons to put at all the seats at the dinner table. And I go to buy a crystal ball. And the idea was to set up, the table as a seance, and so when the kids went through the kitchen, they'd be, ooh, there's a seance, it's just, I did the whole house out. It was super fun. But I got on to Google to look for a crystal ball for the middle of the table, thinking that that I was going to get something off of a movie, a big leaded glass ball, and put it in the middle of the table. And lo and behold, instead, I got this huge list of photos and shopping images of crystal balls, which I did not know was a thing. And I just thought, leaded crystal sphere like I see on TV. And all of these gemstone spheres popped up in my shopping feed. And I just had never had this thought before. Like, I had never been in a rock shop. I had never, my grandpa collected rocks, and he always brought me, rocks and things from places that he had gone. But I'd never been in a crystal shop in my life. I didn't really know that that was anything that people did other than rocks are pretty and they make some cool home decor sometimes. But yeah, I looked for crystal ball, and I see all these gemstone spheres, and I see this enormous selenite sphere about as big as my head, and I am in love with this thing. And I order it from Mexico, which means it takes forever for it to get here. But whatever happened within me, and this is how I know that time and space aren't real. I swear I felt that vibration through a photo on the internet, and felt that crystal vibration just going, you need to get to me right now. I need to get to this crystal sphere right now. And I couldn't really explain it because I had never had an experience like that before. And I didn't know that crystal healing was a thing. So I placed this order from Mexico, and I'm watching my mail every day like a kid on Christmas. I'm going to the door, looking at the mailbox. Is this thing here yet? And in the meantime, I, have this thought, well, gosh, look at all of these gemstone spheres. I'm interested. And I was a science teacher at the time. And I was like, well, I'm interested in geology. I'm interested in rocks. And I got on the internet, and I ordered every 99-cent used book that I could find on rocks and crystal healing, not even understanding what I was ordering. But if it was 99 cents from the half price bookstore, that's what I ordered. And I ended up with this enormous stack of books on geology and crystal healing. And they all arrived before my rock from Mexico did. So I had this huge stack of books, and I was a science teacher, and I was already going through it. I was already interested in those kinds of things, thinking about science. And that's the part of my brain that was turning, the science teacher in me. That's what was turning. But in those books, there was a book with a CD. And the book was written by a woman named Judy Hall, who happens to be a person who we call the grandmother of crystal healing. She lives in the UK, but if you can ever catch an online course, buy any of her books, or follow her work, I highly recommend. And at that time, I had no idea who she was, but I ordered her book, and it arrived with a CD in the back. And I have my big stack of books, and finally, my crystal sphere came in the mail. And I unwrapped it, and I showed the kids, and I got out my crystal meditation CD that came in the book that I ordered from Judy Hall. Now, all this to me at the time it means nothing yet. It's just coincidences. It's just new stuff I'm learning. It's just, I don't even know the word synchronicity yet. And so I put the kids to bed and I turned this CD on and I put this crystal sphere, which is very big. So I just set it in my lap and I sat down on the floor and I turned the CD on and everybody's asleep. And the CD, the instructions were so simple. And Judy Hall just says, hold your crystal, feel its weight, feel its temperature, feel its texture, look at its color, meditate on it visually for a moment. And when you're ready, close your eyes and breathe. That's all she said. Okay. And the music played for 45 minutes. I sat on the floor and I cried and I cried and I cried while holding this sphere. And I wasn't sad. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why I was crying. But these tears of release, just waves and waves of excess emotion were just flooding out of me, just relief and release. And I was just in touch with a part of myself that had felt so very shut down from grief, from my brother passing, that I couldn't feel that part of myself for a long time. So it was almost like that selenite sphere was allowing me to feel myself again, where I had been shut down again, and just waves of excess trapped emotion were just coming out of me. And I was, I wasn't upset. I wasn't crying in grief. It was release, but I didn't really understand what was happening because I was almost like hysterical, like bawling, releasing, but it felt good. And so the CD was over and I was like, okay, well, it's been 45 minutes. I guess I'll get up, and go to bed. I don't really understand what has happened, because also during this time that I'm crying and I'm releasing, I'm seeing all of these visions and all of these things that I've never seen before, and I don't know what they mean. And they're very simple. I would consider them mystical, but they were very simple that would be easy for most people to understand or interpret, but I didn't understand at the time. And so what I was seeing with my eyes closed while I was crying, I was seeing this golden laser light and this marble backdrop. And this golden laser light was coming like from me through this violet light to draw a purple and gold lotus on this marble wall. And it was fascinating because it was slow, it was methodical, and I'm just watching the engraving of this marble happen with this golden laser light make a lotus with violet flame and golden laser onto a wall of marble. And I'm like, I don't have any frame of reference for what any of that would mean. I have no idea. So I went to bed and got up the next morning very early, like sparked with, I don't know what any of this is, but something's happening. I need to know, what does a purple lotus mean? What is golden light? What's the meaning of marble? Does marble mean something? Why am I seeing purple flames? And I have no teacher and I have no frame of reference for any of this. So I'm just typing into Google these phrases. And then I start getting all this information back from this search engine, and I'm putting all this together. And it very quickly leads me to crystal healing and sacred geometry. And that's where I started my path of metaphysics. It was all over a Halloween prop, it was about a Halloween prop. My love for Halloween and a Google search led me to a crystal ball, a real one, that led me back to a space in myself that was ready to reawaken and reemerge and reappear into the world and reintegrate as part of me. And I stepped out of my role as a math and science teacher into the role of a metaphysics teacher, which it all goes together, And so as I look back throughout my life, I went to university for kinesiology and dietetics. And then when I was finished with that, I went to diagnostic sonography school. Well, do you know what ultrasound is? It is the use of sound to create a picture on a screen. So when you start putting all these things together, I had been trying to wake myself up my whole life. You know, I had been preparing for health and wellness my whole life. I have been preparing my brain to understand and fully be able to wrap around physics, metaphysics, geometry, sacred geometry, sound, and math as the language of the universe, being able to understand that and being able to teach that to other people in a way that was easy to understand. And when you're a 5th and 6th grade math and science teacher, you learn how to be able to convey messages to anybody of any age group in ways that they can easily understand and digest, interpret, and apply to their lives. So it's like this awakening across the span of my life is constant. It's constantly being revealed to me how I've been setting myself up my whole life to do what I do today. And what I do today is teach adults how to do yoga. I teach shamanism. I teach magical practice. I teach energy healing. I teach anybody anything that I know, that I've ever learned that they want to learn too. And I'm extremely passionate about it because I understand the interconnectedness of everything. I understand how even the most basic, seemingly mundane parts of my life somehow led me to be supported in what I'm doing today and how everything is connected and related. I teach Kundalini yoga. This is mind-blowing to me. And this is just one of these little instances where I see I was trying to wake myself up and ignoring myself. Years ago, in my early 20s, I had gotten really, really sick. And the doctor had told me, at the time I was a full-time fitness teacher, and it was hardcore fitness. Y'all remember when Tae Bo was a thing? I was a Tae Bo teacher, and I taught weightlifting and I taught aerobics. And when I worked at this wellness center, that was just, cardio and weightlifting all the time. And then I had gotten really sick, and I asked the doctor, well, how long is it going to be until I can work out again? And he said, you're done with that. And I was just devastated and shocked. And he said, but you can do yoga. And I said, oh, no. He was like, you can teach water aerobics. No, I don't know, and I was just like, if I can't run marathons and do this and that, I'm not doing anything. But even back then, 25 years ago, I was trying, my own physical body was trying to get me to do yoga and meditation and breath work. So I finally ended up in the yoga world. I ended up with my own practice. I found crystal healing first. That was my first step on the path. And that led me very quickly to sacred geometry. And I went down the biggest rabbit hole you've ever seen in your life. I was absolutely obsessed with understanding the sacred shapes of creation, the fractal patterning of creation. And I went into this just deep dive within that. And I went there for a while, and I went into energy healing, and then yoga was last on my list. And it was an ego thing. If I can't run marathons, then I don't, want to do anything. And finally, I was listening to some sort of podcast. Podcasts are amazing. You can clean your house, you can drive your car, you can live your life, and you can listen to people talk about things that you're interested in. So I'm a huge podcast fan. So I was listening to a podcast, and somebody came on and they started talking about Kundalini yoga being a householder's yoga. And I was like, what is that? And I don't know. I didn't even know what the word meant. But it just like everything in me like pricked up, and I just started listening really intently to what they were saying. And I think that one of the reasons that I was resistant to yoga is back then, the only way that it had been introduced to me was kind of like a renunciant path. Like if you were going to meditate or you were going to do yoga, you're going to have to give up this and you're going to have to give up that and you're going to have to lead a certain kind of lifestyle. And I wasn't too interested in that lifestyle at that time. And I was like, that must not be for me. And so this man was talking about householders yoga. And he said, householders yoga means this is for people who have homes and lives and children and busy lives, and they're holding their houses as their primary role in life, is taking care of their families and homes, but they also want to have yoga as part of their lives. And yoga makes their lives work better. Yoga makes the house run better. Yoga makes the life run better. Yoga makes everything better. And he was saying that in such a way that I just believed him. I was like, yes, this makes so much sense. I don't even know what this man is talking about, but my whole body is saying yes to this. He says this will make my life better, and my cells believed him. So I was willing to try it. And I did, and I was hooked from the very first time. I did Kundalini yoga for the very first time, and it was another one of those awakenings where something that was dormant within me just came online and began to buzz and radiate with joy and with light. And then that effortless shedding of the excess emotion began to happen as well. You know, and sometimes that comes out as laughter and sometimes it comes out as tears. It doesn't matter. It's like that excess emotion that's been trapped before starts to come out. And what's cool about yoga and what's cool about energy work is you don't have to talk about anything. You don't even have to know what you're shedding. You don't have to tell a story about it. It's just energy. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to tell a story. You don't even have to figure it out. If you will just say yes to the shifts, the transformation, and the release, you just do the yoga, you just do the breathing, you just do the energy work, and everything's energy anyway. So everything just starts to shift for the better. So I started doing Kundalini yoga and started, just a practice that I did in my house. I'm still a stay-at-home mom and a math and science teacher, stay-at-home mom in the summer, math science teacher in the year, and studying all of these things. And I'm doing my little yoga practice at home. And then my now 6-year-old was born. We'll have to do a whole nother podcast about my kids. I want to come back and talk about my kids.
Yeah, I've been proposing that people take their children along with them along their journey, because kids ask questions, are naturally curious. And I think if they're curious, that's a time to bring them in. You don't have to shove it on them, but if they're asking, be honest.
Absolutely. Let's do a whole podcast on that. And I love the ability of my children to choose for themselves. Their father is a Buddhist. Their mother is an energy worker. Their grandparents are Christian. They get to see 3 very different worldviews, and nobody in the family pushes their views on anybody. It's just, this is what we think. And so my kids literally get to choose what resonates with them and ask questions, and what they're curious about, they'll talk more about. And if it doesn't, if they're not curious about it, they'll stop talking. I don't force them to talk about it. If they're curious and they want to know, they will ask me, and I'll ask them too. Do you want to know? And they'll tell me yes or no. And my family is super respectful, around that as well. Yeah, but I'd love to talk about that. And I'd also love to talk about what it's like when you're really super in tune with yourself and you're on your spiritual journey, what it's like to carry a baby and be able to talk telepathically to that baby, and how that higher consciousness of a soul that hasn't been birthed into the world yet affects you and your journey, because it's incredible.
Wow. I would love to hear about that. My mind is blown.
Yes. And another time I could start back over going through this timeline, but let only refer it to my children and talk about how they woke me up and what they awakened me to, and the way that they shaped my journey. Is like this little one who's sitting behind me right now. And she talked to me with the highest consciousness I have ever heard in my life the whole time that I was carrying her. And then I gave birth to her and had a moment of confusion, because she came out of my belly and I knew she was coming out as a baby. I knew she wasn't going to be able to talk to me, but I had been talking to this being inside of me for 9 months, And then she comes out and she can't talk now. And I'm like, well, that's confusing for me. Of course, I understand that. But wow, I got to know her on a deep, deep soul level. And then she comes out in that moment where, we as humans, we come out and we've forgotten everything that we knew. But it was interesting having a confirmation that she still knew everything. She had access to everything until the moment that she, was birthed into the human body, into the breathing world.
We would love to do that actually, because we would like to know about raising children in a spiritual way, because I feel like it's a totally different mindset. How do you go about doing it? How much do you tell them? How much do they understand at different ages? Just all of it.
Wow, can I just say this is just proof to me, because I've understood, soul contracts, and that we choose our parents, and that even the Christians refer to that God knows the time of your birth, who your parents are, and your whole life. So, but if we are fractal versions of God, then we know. And so therefore it's not surprising to me, but fascinating to me that you had this relationship with your unborn child, because that was an agreement you made. And this is why I think people should bring their children along with them on their spiritual journey, because you're right. They're here to work with you. You have a soul contract. You probably came as a whole family unit. I know I did. It's been revealed to me that my family's been reincarnated multiple times together to accomplish certain things for each other and switch roles and do all this stuff. So it's fascinating.
Yes, it is.
So I'm curious, has she shown signs of remembering anything from before?
Not remembering that in particular that I can tell, but her memory itself is really, she remembers things that past a certain age, you don't remember things that happened when you were 1, 2, 3 years old. And somehow this particular kid she's talking about something that, when she was 1.5 years old. And she's also an incredible artist. She's about to have her 10th birthday. And about the time she turned 6 years old, she was able to take a pen and a paper and look at an image and then just draw it. Like this beautiful lion that's behind you, if I asked her to draw it right now, she would just draw it. And she's just this incredible being. But I see these glimpses. She's never said anything about remembering, but I see this advanced intelligence and these advanced gifts within her. She shows these signs, and she'll do things, that are very, typical for her age. And then all of a sudden she'll sit down and she'll chant with me for like 15 minutes without moving, which is way beyond what a 9-year-old normally would do, right? And it's not that I've asked her to do that or expected her to do that. It's that I'm doing it. So she sits down and she does it. And the words to all of the yoga mantras are not always simple or easy to understand. And she just sits down and says them as if she knows them. So there's definitely signs of remembrance, even though she's not consciously saying, I remember this, you can still see that she does through her behaviors and her patterns. She's obviously been an artist in another lifetime. She's obviously practiced yoga and learned Sanskrit in another lifetime. And her memory is just, wow, it's impeccable. And her level of compassion and understanding, for other people is incredible. I really would say, I'm telling these stories about things that happen, but it's making me really emotional to think about. It's really carrying her in my body is truly the biggest catalyst to awakening. Her being within my being and talking to me like she did and showing me what she showed me. She really cleared a lot of religious trauma out of me during that 9 months. She taught me a lot of things. She showed me what wasn't true and what is true about source love that I didn't really know. I've been reading about it and been trying to wrap my mind around it, but, in energy and in symbols and signs and different languaging, she showed me, what creator really is, what love really is, what universal consciousness really is. Thinking about having your child as your teacher before they were born is just, it's incredible. So when we talk about awakening, and then I think that's our intent, on being here, it's talking about awakening. I say all these other things have happened, which are absolutely true. And I'm constantly awakening, but it's her that really just jolted me into a brand new reality in a brand new way, because of the purity of her message, the purity of her intent, the lack of distortion in what she was saying, because she wasn't an earthbound being yet. There's no conditioning, there's no distortion. Nobody had taught her anything in this lifetime yet. She was just talking to me. So it was just a very clear and pure source of information that allowed me to understand what love was or is, and what my perception of God and creator and source is. Just totally revamped itself during that time, and so much deprogramming and deconditioning got done during that time. So I'm not suggesting that anybody have a baby for the purpose of awakening, but also you might, kind of prepare yourself that if you're already on a path of consciousness, the children that are being born during this time on the planet, they're so highly conscious already. They come into this world so highly conscious already that you kind of have to be prepared for what's about to happen within your own body, because this highly conscious being is coming to live right here as you take it through being ready to be born. So definitely she has been the biggest catalyst for my awakening. And Kundalini yoga, I'd have to, yes, crystals were the thing that I touched in my hand that caused the frequency shift the very first time. But Kundalini yoga has been, I would say, the source of my daily awakening, my daily expansion, my daily way to continue my dedication and devotion to my growth path. I practice every day. It gives me a way to connect to myself and to universal love and to my own wisdom and to all the wisdom that is available to us. And I cannot recommend yoga enough. If you want to do anything with your body and you're not sure what to do with your body, try yoga. Specifically, try Kundalini yoga, because it teaches you how to manage your own energy and how to awaken the dormant energy that lies at the base of your spine that is located in your body for healing. It's there for all of us. We all have this beautiful Kundalini energy that is in our divine blueprint, and our modern day way of living kind of shuts it down. And the practice of Kundalini yoga and conscious breathing and loving intention allows that dormant energy to waken back up and travel throughout your physical body and shift you in what can be a very powerful way. But I find that it's very gently powerful in the way that I practice it and the way that I use it as a daily way to expand and stay devoted to my path and manage my energy, take care of my physical vessel, with exercise, my nervous system with the breath, and then my mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies with the entire practice. So really right now, I do all the things I do, and I love all the things that I do, but right now I'm so deep into the study of Kundalini yoga and so on fire and motivated, inspired by my own student. I don't even know what I'm doing here. You guys are teaching me so much that I'm just like mind blown. I'm having the most incredible experience inside a yoga teacher training. Some of these people are my longtime friends and longtime yoga buddies, or they have been community members at Open Hearts. And so we all kind of know each other, and we've all done Reiki on each other or for each other and swapped services and sat in classes and community together. So it's this very loving community friendship experience where we're all learning Kundalini yoga together. And it's like every time that we come together, we create this incredible healing container where just miraculous things are happening. People are having things come into form, come into manifestation that they've been waiting on for a long time. They've been waiting to feel joy and happiness within their own being for a long time, and suddenly they're feeling it. They're feeling things coming online that have either been asleep or dormant or never felt before. And things are happening really fast and really powerfully in the Kundalini Yoga teacher training container. And with a whole lot of our beautiful healing friends, miracles are really happening in our lives and on the planet. And I really believe in the power of collective healing. I believe in the power of coming together where two or more gather, miracles occur. And I am watching that happen before my eyes. So yeah, shout out to Kundalini Yoga and our beautiful community.
Yeah, your whole story is beautiful, Summer. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today. I mean, especially the surprise of carrying your daughter. That was truly amazing.
Well, thank you for letting me share. I feel like these stories that we tell are important to let people know they're not alone while they're expanding and awakening, and suddenly everything looks completely new and completely different. And it is okay to wake up and have the world look completely different to you. And there are places to go and people that you can talk to that do have that frame of reference for what's going on and can help you understand, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. And then also really like people to know that awakening is not a one-time thing. We're constantly awakening to ourselves and making the choice to expand. So it's a beautiful, exciting journey. It's not always the easiest. It's definitely the path less chosen, the path less traveled. And many of us were kind of bushwhacking and cutting our way through the wild and helping each other pave the way. But that's what we're here for, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love how you said that you didn't know what you were doing with the crystals, but you just following your instincts. And that's what I always tell a lot of my clients is just go with what you're drawn to, because there's a reason. It's spirit, it's source guiding you, where we can't get off this path. We're born on this path to awaken. That's what we're here to do, to discover what we truly are, which is spiritual divine beings. And if we follow those instincts, like you said, it's just, if you just keep curious, get really curious about yourself, what you're interested in, and, don't think, oh, well, that's just a bunch of hooey. I need to focus on this thing that I've decided is my path. It's like, you might be surprised. Just start opening doors. Just start walking through the doors that are opening for you. Get really curious.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I always joke about my mad scientist face. When you first awaken and everything is so exciting and you've never seen or heard any of these things before, for like 3 years, I don't think that I slept. And I called that my mad scientist space, where I was just like nose in the books and learning all the crystals and learning all the sacred geometry and learning all the astrology and learning all the things. And it was so fascinating and so full of insight for me that I just couldn't stop studying. I couldn't stop reading. I couldn't stop deep diving. And I believe, that's, we call it awakening, but it's just getting in touch with new places within ourselves that we're remembering, right? Just like talking about my daughter, we forget things when we come to this planet, but then all of a sudden we get these illuminations and these awakenings and enlightenments. It's like, oh, I remember. And it's so exciting.
Yes. And that's why it's important to include our children too, because even the Bible refers to that the way to Christ is through the eyes of a child. And what do children do? But ask a lot of questions, get really curious and playful. We forget that as adults because we get so serious with trying to survive. And I do think that that's been constructed for us to divert us away from awakening, to give us all these things that we are supposed to be thinking about instead of remembering our divinity.
Right.
Because we're creator beings.
Right. We should be playing and drawing and dancing and singing and painting and playing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Summer. I really appreciate your time and you being here and sharing so openly with us.
Well, thank you so much. It was a joy to be with you both tonight, and I hope to talk with you again soon. And
Well, yes, let's set up a time to do this again because there's so many more questions I have for you. I was on your site. I was looking at the crystal work alone, and I love even there how you said that a lot of people will get crystals expecting the crystal to work a miracle for them, but that you have to, work with the crystal and allow the energies to come through, even if they're kind of painful sometimes. I thought that was fascinating. So next time, I'd love to dive deep into that as well.
absolutely. I can't and do talk about this all the time. I'm like, you want to talk about that? Of course I want to talk about that. We meet on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock,
Yeah, exactly. That works.
All right. Well, until next time, thank you so much.